You know, I'm going to pass on a little known fact about pop rock folk history. This song went number one in Canada not because the people in the States didn't support it, it went top five. Because Denny Doherty was a good maritimer, and many radio stations across Canada were playing artists that were Canadian or were part of bands. You look at the Loving Spoonful, Zanowski, you look at Steppenwolf. But Creeque Alley, my God, what a great story song. Probably one of the better story songs of the 1960s. It tells the story of basically the whole summer love movement before 1967. Now, Creeque Alley is an autobiographical hit single written by John Phillips and Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and Papas in late 66, narrating the story of how the group was formed in its early years. The third song of the album, Deliver, it peaked at number 5 in the U.S. Billboard Pop Singles Chart the week of Memorial Day 67, of course, went number 1 in Canada. This was their last top 10 hit, if you can believe that. It went to number 9 in the UK singles charts, and number 4 in the Australian, and number 1 on the Canadian charts. Now, on Dunhill Records, with Lou Adler doing production, still goes under what we call now Sunshine Pop. Now, the title of the song, which does not occur in the lyrics, is derived from Creeque or Creeque, pronounced Creeque Alley, home to the club in the Virgin Islands, where the new journeyman, John and Michelle Phillips' original group, spent time on vacation. The lyric "greasing on American Express cards" refers to that time during which they could only make ends meet by using their credit cards to the max. And the lyric "Duffy's good vibrations, our imaginations can't go on indefinitely" refers to Hugh Duffy, the owner of the club at Creeque Alley. Duffy later owned Shea Shack in Vieques, Puerto Rico. Now, if you look at the documentary Straight Shooter, and Denny Doherty gives a big story about living down there and instead of looking at the beach, oh my God, look at that. But if you go on Straight Shooter, the documentary, the extended version, not the edited version, it tells the whole story better than the song does. Now, the Phillips lyrics mentioned directly or indirectly many artists and bands who were part of the folk music scene at the time, including fellow band members Cass Elliot and Denny Doherty, Zelda Zanowski and John Sebastian of Lovin' Spoonful, Roger McGuinn of the Byrds, and Barry Maguire of the New Christy Minstrels. The group had previously provided backing vocals for Maguire, including on the first recorded version of California Dreamin'. Several locations important to the band's story are mentioned, such as the Night Owl Cafe in Greenwich Village. Michelle Phillips is referred to in the lyrics by her nickname Michi. John and Michi were getting kind of itchy just to leave the folk music behind. John Phillips said he wrote the song to tell their producer Lou Adler who was who in the band's history. The line that ends the first 3 verses, "and no one's getting fat except Mama Cass." The 4th verse, with the story of the genesis of the Mamas and the Papas nearing its denouement, Philip changes the concluding line to "and everybody's getting fat except Mama Cass," with the word "fat" assuming the meaning of prosperous, alluding to the notion that the successes recently achieved by Cass's professional associates and friends had still eluded her. Now, during that Virgin Island vacation, Cass became the last member to join the group when they were still known as a new journeyman. The name change followed soon afterwards. The final line in California Dreamin' Has Become a Reality is an apparent reference to their hit song California Dreamin', and marks the point at which the group achieved its breakthrough, leaving behind the lifestyle described in the rest of the song. Now, Michelle Phillips, he said, "We went from total poverty to like we won the lottery." Now, I'm fascinated by, I hope you take it right away, Michelle Phillips ended up being a slut. She slept with everybody back then, especially Gene Clark and Denny Doherty and all that. We've later found out that John Phillips was basically having a sexual relationship with his daughter, Mackenzie. Denny had his own demons as well, but Mama was never really respected at the level that John Phillips did. And when he did the Straight Shooter documentary, he basically embellished the fact he never really respected Cass to a level because she was the last to join. It's sort of like if George, John, and Paul would just disrespect Ringo. Now, Cashbox called the single a driving, pulsing, grooving ditty. Record world called it infectious. Now, Australia Go Set charts number 4, Canada RPM top singles number 1, Ireland number 14, New Zealand number 16, South Africa Springbok number 19, UK number 9, US Hot Billboard number 5, US Cashbox. Now, to my knowledge, this was when the first time a maritimer in a U.S. band hit number 1 in the States. I mean Canada, the top 5 of the States, if anybody would correct me. In Canada, it was 74 year-end charts. U.S. on Joel Whitburn's Pop Annual, number 60, and on Cashbox, number 88. Now, we're going to go over a little bit of the lyrics because I think it's basically something that needs to be talked about. And the way it's sung, it's almost like, you know how George Jones had his country songs. There's a start, beginning, and end, and at the end, there's a resolution. Now, the lyrics go like this. John and Mitchie were getting kind of itchy just to leave the folk music behind. Zal and Denny, a loving spoonful, working for a penny, trying to get a fish in the line. In the coffee house, Sebastian sat, and after every number, they'd pass the hat. McGinn and McGuire just a getting higher in LA, you know where that's at, and no one's getting fat except Mama Cass. Zal said, Denny, you know there ain't many who can sing a song the way that you do. Let's go south. Denny said, Zally, golly, don't you think that I wish I could play a guitar like you. Zal, Denny, and Sebastian sat in a night owl, and after every number they'd pass the hat. McGuinn and McGuire still a getting higher in LA, you know where that's at, and no one's getting fat except Mama's Cass. When Cass was a sophomore, planning to go to Swarthmore, but she changed her mind one day. Standing at a turnpike, thumb out the hitchhike, take me to New York right away. When Denny met Cass, he gave her lump bumps, called John and Zal, and that was the mugwumps. McGuinn and McGuire couldn't get no higher, but that's where they're aiming at, and no one's getting fat except Mama Cass. Mugwumps, high jumps, low slumps, big bumps. Don't you work as hard as you play? Make up, break up, everything is shake up. Guess it had to be that way. Sebastian and Zal formed a spoonful. Michelle and John and Denny getting very tuneful. McGinn and McGuire just a catching fire. In LA, you know where that's at. And everybody's getting fat except Mama Cass. Dee whoa. Roke, busted, disgusted, agents can't be trusted, and Mitchie wants to go to the sea. Cass can't make it, but she says she will have to fake it. We knew she'd come eventually. Greasing on American Express cards. Oh, we've been looking for this card. It loads Roland by keeping out the heat hard. Duffy's good vibrations and our imaginations can go on indefinitely. And California Dreamin' is becoming a reality. It's hard to believe. This was her last top 10 song, but with the amount of drugs you're using, and no matter what Ed Sullivan saying they were busted up to hear they might be breaking up, there was a lot going on more than their talent. Mama Cass leaving the Mamas and the Papas, or them breaking up, except for that terrible album in early 71. Mama Cass became the artist she could have been. And you know, when she died, 51 years ago this year, I was at a convenience store in Charlotte, New Brunswick, and when that came over, it was like a part of music died. Mama had such a voice. And the fact was, her unrequited love for Denny Doherty gave her that inspiration. And I would see her do work on The Tonight Show, see her do work with John Denver, you know, whatever, freaking talent. And she was guessing all these talk shows, and 33 is not a life. So, I mean, she even changed her ways. She wanted a baby, and she didn't want a husband, and she got a baby. And that child, of course, was an early version of Wilson Phillips, so that's the story another day. So, Creeque Alley, it's a top 20 story song of the 1960s in all genres, country, R&B, pop. And Mama Cass meant so much to me. She meant to much to so many people in Canada. But I never had a chance to meet Denny Doherty. Denny had his own career in Canada, children's entertainer. It's just, you look at the growth of the Canadian musicians of the 60s, the Guess Who, Loving Spoonful, Steppenwolf, Mamas and the Papas. And we would always point to the TV and say, that's Denny Doherty. That's the guy that really stirred the drink. It wasn't John Phillips. John was the writer, but without Denny or Mama. But no offense, John Phillips loved Mama Cass. But sometimes I just wonder, was he jealous of her? Because he would have made more money, but he was not. He was writing things that Michelle would agree on rather than, you know, and then Michelle, she got her wild oats, eh? That's an awful fuck up, that 5 years between 62, 63 and 1968 after Monterey. It was like a firework, as we say. So listen, that's the story of a Creeque Alley, and if you want to listen to it tonight, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of the best songs you've never heard, if you've never heard it before. So if you like what you're doing with our musical tributes on Behind the Tracks, let us know in a like, comment, subscribe, or share.